the first ever human clones.
This video is not made to discourage anybody who has gone through the abortion process or has made the decision to abort their child for any subsequent reasons.
Your mind. It is the center of your life. It is everything you hear.
If we could provide
the latest video in a sustained effort to undermine support for Planned Parenthood.
Everything you see.
Reprises the dramatic effects that have helped the Center for Medical Progress stoke the growing controversy.
Scientists in the U.S. say they have developed an artificial womb that could dramatically increase the chances of survival for premature babies.
Tell me something. Why is it so hard for you to kill this man?
What you are looking at is a living, breathing, swallowing, premature baby lamb.
Everything you feel. It is everything you are.
Edited undercover video with a Planned Parenthood research director in Texas talking about extracting intact fetus cadavers and body parts from abortions for use in fetal tissue.
And inside a bag filled with fluid. It's called an artificial womb.
Research.
So that anything that we integrate into that procedure without having you cover the procedural costs is going to be higher, right?
In the eerie blue light of his secret lab, one of the world's most controversial scientists shows off.
How would you know if someone stole your mind?
His creation, cloned human embryos that are genetic carbon copies of their father.
So here's a list of animals that have been cloned. Not on that list, humans, yet. So we just...
Ladies and gentlemen, meet Double Trouble, live here with his mommy, Danielle. Say hi. Good morning. So you've had Double Trouble for about 6 weeks now?
Yes.
Oh, how's he doing? How's he adjusting?
He's doing very well. He's adjusting pretty well.
Excuse me, doctor, but what is impossible? What is impossible, doctor?
Mononuclear reproduction.
Oh, doctor.
Cloning. What if I were to tell you that I could take a scraping of skin from your finger and create another Ezra Lieberman?
I would tell you not to waste your time on my finger.
Right. Anything about higher gestational age, there's more opportunity.
For Adam Gibson, today is a day he'll never forget.
For complication.
Interspersed with talk about budgets and money.
If we...
We're about to meet their clone parents, who have been chosen as humanity's first ever cloned people.
Our administration believes that there are loopholes that could allow the cloning of human beings if the technology were developed.
Researchers have already successfully tested these liquid-filled sacs on lamb fetuses. They say if the technology can be used on humans, it could offer extremely premature babies a crucial opportunity to develop their lungs and other organs. Dr. Arthur Kaplan is a professor of bioethics at the New York University School of Medicine, and he joins me now. Dr. Kaplan, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
This is an extraordinary development. The survival rate of a baby born prior to 24 weeks is about 50%. Can you explain how these artificial wombs increase the chances of survival?
Get ready for a surprise!
You can't run around, he knows too much.
And is meant to mimic the real thing, a mother's uterus. Canadian researcher Dr. Emily Partridge helped create the so-called biobag with a team of scientists in Philadelphia. The tests are on lambs, but the goal is meant to eventually help human babies.
Alter our process, and we are able to obtain intact fetal cadavers. Then we can make it part of the budget that any dissections are this, and splitting specimens into different shipments is this. I mean, it's all just a matter of line item.
Oh, my babies are doing well. They look beautiful.
Filmed for a TV documentary, Dr. Panagiotis Zavos implants 11 of the embryos in 4 women, one of them British, in the hope of producing the first cloned human being. The procedure is a criminal offence in the UK, but not in this undisclosed Middle Eastern country.
So just how important is cloning technology? And should we be worried about evil clone armies in the future?
Anyway, that is cloning. It was first done with plants. A cutting taken from a plant and transplanted grew to be the exact duplicate of the donor plant. Now we are doing the same thing with laboratory animals.
You mean you can produce an animal from itself?
We take the unfertilized egg of an ovulating female and destroy all of its genes and chromosomes. We then implant the nucleus of the donor cell, which could be taken from a blood sample or even a skin scraping. That cell, with its genetic material intact, eventually becomes an embryo and is born as a living creature.
I got luck. The bump in your skull.
Mine before I made it.
The end of the video includes graphic pictures of what is described as fetal tissue with the voices of the actors who posed as representatives of a company that collects tissue samples, asking questions and identifying body parts with Planned Parenthood lab technicians.
I have him right there. Take the shot.
This thing out of the case and stick it up your nose.
And he'd be gone.
Don't worry yourself.
I'm Slim Shady, yes, I'm the real Shady. All you other Slim Shadys are just imitating. So won't the real Slim Shady please stand up? Please stand up. Please stand up.
I know you went into I'm a celebrity, the jungle, thanks for, you would have had some kind of medical checkup.
Yes, that's already in it.
Our laboratory had to bring all the DNA and things like that to check people.
You do all the edited.
Yeah.
It's free up in there, isn't it?
The human was cloned. The human was used.
Therefore, today I am issuing a directive that bans the use of any federal funds for any cloning of human beings. Effective immediately, no federal agency may support, fund, or undertake such activity.
Today, even before it was released, the leader of the group responsible for the video predicted it would have more impact than the other production.
Now it's going to be even more shocking. You're going to see evidence in it of how Planned Parenthood is actually willing to sell fully intact fetuses to buyers of aborted fetal tissue.
Before 22 weeks, the fetus doesn't have lungs. It can't breathe air. It doesn't have the capability. It actually breathes in through the fluid in the amniotic sac of the mother. So it's got, when we see pregnant women with the bellies, it's breathing that fluid. It's kind of like a mermaid. This device, this technology will let you artificially save those kids. If they get born prematurely, you could put them into the artificial womb and they could breathe the fluid just like in a mom.
Now, what happens if you're born at 23 weeks? The analogy that we use is you're sort of like a fish on dry land. You're really not ready to be out of a fluid environment, and we sort of have to do our best to try to compensate for those physiologic insults.
About half of premature babies, those born at 23 weeks, don't survive. And those who do survive, the majority, suffer lifelong illnesses and serious disabilities. Many with underdeveloped lungs need to be placed on ventilators attached to incubators. The artificial womb is meant to provide a safer environment by trying to bridge the gap for the babies who are born too early.
This is a much more...
Some factual evidence may be included within this.
Now, a corporation illegally cloning humans must eliminate their mistakes.
I think we have 3 very good embryos that could be in utero today, and that if implantation is successful as well, and the pregnancy is maintained, as we say in the U.S., we have a home run.
Because there are 2 Adam Gibsons.
Cloning has played a role far larger than I think it's likely to play in the future of science and medicine. The money, the ability to do something useful with cloning is probably over on the research side of cloning, not on the reproductive.
That means cloning to create stem cells that can grow into replacement organs. And while that's pretty cool, science fiction likes to take it one step further.
That's proof that humans are being cloned.
Planned Parenthood, facing a sustained push in Congress to stop the group from getting government funding, is in full damage control mode.
What we're seeing here are attacks on people's ability to get health care.
Welcome to Mars. You got a lot of nerve showing your face around here.
Who's talking?
It's our parents.
Well, it has no father because the egg was never fertile.
Can
you last? No mother, because its genetic code comes from another being. Can you follow?
And this creature is an exact duplicate of itself?
Oh, Doctor, how can that be?
I don't know.
Several states, including Texas, have launched Planned Parenthood investigations with a video accusing the group of offering to adjust medical procedures in order to preserve tissue in parts for research groups to purchase.
You erased your identity and implanted it.
The ghost.
Do you really want to live?
If I'm not me, who the hell am I? Who is he?
That's if you want to grow a human heart or a human kidneys. So I'm saying human body, which is what we create clones out. We actually made we made clone of you. We made a clone of you. You know, I was mentioning earlier on how we had cells when we went into the jungle. Just as an example.
Of course, a great deal of research and activity in this area is supported by private funds. That is why I am urging the entire scientific and medical community, every foundation, every university, every industry that supports work in this area, to heed the federal government's example.
Please fasten your seatbelt. I want clay delivered alive for reimplantation.
In addition to that, what are some of the other challenges associated with a premature birth?
So premature babies have other underdeveloped organs. They can't really process nutrition well. When you see them in those neonatal ICUs, they're having a tough go of it. This will let them grow larger, have all their organ systems ready to go. So it's really good for handling this terrible problem of premature birth.
And why did protective and really a much more physiologic environment for the fetus? This is really how they were meant to reside.
In this research, the lambs tested were equivalent in age to a 23-week human fetus. They were taken from their mothers via C-sections and placed in transparent bags filled with a liquid substitute for amniotic fluid. The lamb's umbilical cord is attached to a machine that doubles as a placenta, which exchanges carbon dioxide in the blood with oxygen. No ventilator is needed since the lamb's heart does all the pumping.
For making me come to Mars.
who married?
Dr. Zavos also reveals he's produced cloned embryos from 3 dead people, including Katie, who died in a car crash. He injected her DNA into a cow egg, though he hasn't implanted the animal-human hybrid.
Our experiments began with the simplest of animals.
Hollywood is absolutely in love with the idea of human cloning. They can sort of use it as the archetypal villain. Cloning fears play on a couple of things. They sort of challenge our notion of uniqueness and individuality. They also sort of raise the issue of how much of who we are can be duplicated or replicated or manufactured.
For instance, for us, animals in which the female's eggs are fertilized externally. Then we moved on to mammals. We tried several laboratory animals and found the right most convenient.
There are calls for the Justice Department to investigate. Planned Parenthood asserted,
consider that a divorce.
I had to develop instruments which could accomplish the operation, and a whole micro-injection system. I showed...
The footage released today doesn't show Planned Parenthood staff engaged in any wrongdoing.
It's just why he's going to. He is you.
25 years ago, they made you from me.
This is the world we live in, like how easy it is.
You got one
Kane, 3 years ago, when you were in the Big Brother house, we took you sample just to show how easy science is.
Are you serious?
Oh, yes, yeah. You're going to meet your own clone.
Shut up.
You haven't. We have.
I'm asking for a voluntary moratorium on the cloning of human beings until our Bioethics Advisory Commission and our entire nation have had a real chance to understand and debate the profound ethical implications of the latest advances.
Researchers choose to test fetal lambs, and just how similar are they to human babies?
You know, it's funny. You might think lambs. What does that have to do with people? But they're actually a really good model. It has tended to work, at least in pregnancy in lambs, it tended to be pretty predictive of what works in people.
Wow, that's something that I think most people wouldn't realize. Well, in terms of cost, how will these devices affect the medical costs and expenses that come oftentimes when a baby is born prematurely?
They're going to be expensive. Even now, a neonatal intensive care unit, it's a very expensive place to have a baby.
Researchers say some of the lambs remained healthy in their liquid bag for over a 4-week period, breathing normally, opening their eyes. Some even grew wool. The lambs were later euthanized so they could be studied.
Some factual evidence may be included within this.
British scientists have condemned his work as reckless. Cloning of animals, such as Dolly, has shown the technique carries risks of severe congenital abnormalities.
But even if a cloned person was created, that doesn't mean it would be an exact copy of the original.
We're not merely the kind of automatic readout of our genes. We should think of our genome as a kind of diary, but not a diary that has been written upon yet.
Which means that you, version 2.0, would have a very different set of experiences than the original you.
Here we are removing the eggs of a white rabbit from the fallopian tubes.
Interact with one another, but it wasn't really perfected, and it was just something that was just being spoken about and not really done often.
And how is double trouble different from trouble?
So far, I really don't see any difference.
Really?
I really don't see much of a difference.
Now, you see the egg under a microscope. I approach the point of an ordinary sewing needle into view to give you an idea of the size.
That small?
Most mammal eggs are about that size.
Including human eggs?
Yes.
They chose me because there's never been anybody like me. We have to end this
The next step is to destroy the egg nucleus.
right now. You have all of his gifts without his pain.
With ultraviolet light, so that none of his genetic makeup remains.
You made a person out of another person.
But Slim, what if you win? Wouldn't it be weird? Why? You guys can just lie to get me here.
Then you sent me to kill him.
You enjoyed the ride. You haven't. You have. No, look, you haven't. I promise you have. You haven't. You have. No, you can't. It's the easiest thing in the world. You're not allowed to. You're allowed to.
What are you going to do? Take my life back. I don't guess. Wish I could say the one and only.
You're not allowed to since 2010.
Who are you people?
As we gain a fuller understanding of this technology, we must proceed not with caution, not just with caution, but also with a conscience.
This technology would put more babies into those settings, so not cheap.
So there are ethical questions now being raised about what could potentially be the social implications of this technology if, in fact, babies are able to live longer with these devices.
So,
astounded at how normally the lungs have grown and matured over 4 weeks in the artificial womb.
I find it A, incredible, and B, disgusting, because he's sowing false hope to begin with. So the individuals who are involved in this experiment, and that's what it is, an experiment.
We're carrying out lambs that essentially look indistinguishable from lambs that have been born normally.
May well not realise that the outcome is almost certainly going to be negative. And to put couples through that, in my opinion, is unethical.
Groups claim to have cloned human embryos or even delivered an actual cloned baby. There's no proof of it.
So any effort to try to make a baby by cloning, given the very, very high probability that the baby's going to be serious.
And he's so well behaved. Yeah, he's a good actor. He's very much. Yeah, he's a typical puppy. He's a typical Lester Jumper. I think he's just out of his element, so he's just
abnormal. It's just completely morally unjustifiable.
Now you see an egg from a white rabbit ready to be injected with the blood cell from a black rabbit donor. With the injection pipette, one of the blood cells is sucked up and then injected into the egg. After a few hours, the eggs in culture divide and are ready to be put back into the female.
I'm sick of you little girl and boy groups, all you do is annoy me, so I have been sent here to destroy you. And there's a million of us just like me.
What? Listen to me. That's like a problem from another mother, it's actually me. You made a choice to do this to me.
This thing that you're struggling with is fear. Embrace it and overcome it.
Yeah, you're going to be mean yourself. Obviously, you're starting off with slightly different conditions.
Plus like me, who just don't give a f like me, who dress like me, walk, talk, and act like me. It just might be the next best thing, but not quite me.
When you need my permission, Chloe.
What's
that one to touch me? You can't
have done this without my permission. This is wrong. This is not right.
Some factual evidence may be included in this.
By insisting that not a single taxpayer dollar supports human cloning, and by urging a moratorium on all private research in this area, we can ensure that as we move forward on this issue.
Interesting thing, I think it's been picked up on yet, is fetal viability. When you think about the abortion debate, is set at 24 weeks. That's when the lungs develop, that's when the child can exist outside the womb. What if you could push it back to 19 weeks?
When Margaret Sanger checked my history, started Planned Parenthood, the objective was to put these centers in primarily black communities so they could help kill black babies before they came into the world.
But let's be cautious, says this Toronto neonatal doctor.
It's a very innovative idea, and I think it has merit to be tested, but we need to go step by step into the human experimentation.
Dr. Zavos adapted a standard cloning technique for his human patients. He first took an egg from the mother and stripped out the nucleus containing 99.9% of her DNA. He then took a skin cell from the father and extracted the genetic material. That was injected into the empty egg and given a jolt of electricity to form a cloned embryo.
Then they grow into embryos, which...
Both Murray and Kaplan support a ban on cloning for reproductive needs, but neither think that ban should extend to stem cell research. So is there any chance we'll actually see a human version of Dolly the sheep?
We're going to have in a month's time, the normal gestation period, they will become baby rabbits.
very like, yeah. But, there's some people at home that are like going, scratching their head a little bit right now. So what do you say to those folks? But like I said before, this is what I did because this is what I chose to do, and I'm not saying it's for everybody out there to do. This was my choice, and it's what I wanted.
In this instance, a black litter from a white mother and their black collar proves that they have been cloned from the blood cell of a black rabbit.
All the people in the world to come after me.
I'm Slim Shady, yes, I'm the real Shady. All you other Slim Shadys are just imitating.
It's wrong, it's right, it's wrong, it's not wrong. You're nuts. No, go on, tight. Would you go and bring...
So won't the real Slim Shady please stand up? Please stand up. Please stand up.
And Brian's clone. Welcome to Gen Tech Systems. The future tomorrow.
What do you say, dude?
So in the spirit of our times, the first ever clones were celebrities.
We weigh the concerns of faith and family.
16 weeks. That's going to really, if you will, be tinder to the abortion fire. Other issue, should we make babies completely outside the body? You grow them in a controlled environment like this and say, hey, we'll get to the right nutrition, we'll get to the optimal air, we'll do it absolutely right. Maybe there's going to be a dispute about natural birth versus artificial birth.
Researchers hope to begin clinical trials on human babies in the next 3 to 5 years.
Run!
Within a matter of days, the embryo would have grown into a ball of 32 cells, which Dr. Zavos implanted into the mother's womb. So far, none of the attempts has led to a viable pregnancy, but this infertile Canadian doctor, who wants to remain anonymous, says the technique is his only hope of having a child.
Prove that it can really be developed safely without death and deformity in animals. If that happens, then we may see someone try to clone a human being for, to have an offspring in 30, 40 years.
Even then, Kaplan sees reproductive human cloning as a red herring for more pressing bioethical questions on the horizon.
Isn't it difficult to get the egg back into the female?
Transferring the eggs isn't the problem. We do that all the time with laboratory animals. The really tricky part is the microsurgery. Getting donor cell into the egg. You're lucky. 1 in 10 survives.
This can be done with humans?
If the surgical technique were precise enough.
It's monstrous, Doctor.
Why?
I'm like a head switch to listen to, cause I'm only giving you things you joke about with your friends inside your living room. You only dip because I got the balls to say it in front of you all and not about to be false or sugarcoating it all. I just be on the mic and spit it, and whether you like to admit it or I just better than 90% of you rappers out there. Then you wanna have 10 kids, see these albums like, it's funny, cause at the rate I'm going when I'm 30, I'll be the only person in the nursing home learning.
Wouldn't you want to live in a world full of Mozarts and Picassos? Of course, it's only a dream. Not only would you have to reproduce the genetic code of the donor, but the environmental background as well.
David. Obviously, it's probably in a different environment to you.
Same physique. You've created a monster. I've been able to.
No, it's not this.
Philosophy and values, not merely of science alone.
People who may be struggling with infertility issues.
Infertility, even people who may be single men or other, people say this is the road to having my baby.
A whole host of issues. Well, back in 1996, you were quoted in the New York Times saying that the artificial womb would be available in 60 years. Now, only 2 decades later, they've been successfully tested. First of all, how did you know? And also, when do you think we might actually see this being used with humans?
Pretty much decided that probably I would be the first one to be cloned, but then, if it worked, then we might go on to have another child.
Despite almost universal condemnation, Dr. Zavos has vowed to continue his work. He says more than 100 patients have contacted him in the hope of having a cloned baby.
Is Mengele trying to reproduce himself?
No. He has brown eyes and he comes from a very wealthy family.
What we need to be worried about is efforts to improve, enhance, and optimize human beings, either by putting technology into them or by changing their genetic makeup. I think we have much more to worry about with cyborgs than they do clones.
Well, so far only off by 40 years, so that's not bad. But I knew it was going to happen because the problem is chemicals. And as soon as you figure out how those chemicals work inside the mom, that technology was going to be here, and the pressure to
examine the family background of the donor. Father is 65 years old, a civil servant.
do things to help preemie babies that we can't save because they don't have lungs yet, they haven't developed, is enormous. Inevitable that we'll get it. How soon will we see it used in humans? I'll just go on record and say I think another 5 to 8 years.
Mother is 42, you said. She dotes on the child. The boy is pale, dark hair, blue eyes, spoiled.
You don't spend a holiday on a sundown to drink a strawberry daiquiri on the beach looking good.
That's not the
unlike you, David.
Well, it's definitely not human.
Exactly, it's not human. It's a crime.
No, this is mad, this is mad.
It's not mad, it's science and it's beautiful and it's a future.
You're mad.
No.
You're mad.
What's
You're
mad?
like Frankenstein.
Right? Now, Daniel would certainly know every social and environmental detail would have to be reproduced. Plus, if the parents were divorced when the boy was 10, this would have to be arranged.
Dr. Büchner,
Yes,
the one who is cloned, the donor, he has to be alive, doesn't he?
Don't forget, I clone my pet air tonight on TLC.
Not necessarily. Individual cells taken from a donor can be preserved indefinitely. With a sample of Mozart's blood in women, someone with the skill and the equipment could breed a few hundred baby Mozarts.
Working in the lambs has a pretty good chance of working in people.
It's that predictive with the lambs,
Yes.
you think. 5 to 8 years, all right.
My God. If it's really been done, we'll have to see one of those boys. Arriba!
Then down the road, neonatal units could come equipped with these incubators of the future. Not much different than what's there now, say researchers, except a baby will be placed inside a biobag.
You don't see that talked that much about. It's Planned Parenthood. No, it's planned genocide. And you can quote me on that.
Thank you very much.
Come walk with me. Come talk to me.